Thanks to Balázs, who's president of UCAN, and also acknowledge the work of the UCAN Secretariat, all involved, Karma and her team, for all their work to create the opportunity for us to come together and to share learning and also to ask new questions of each other. So as Balázs has identified, a university can be a learning organization. Everyone would aspire to this, that any organization we're part of is a learning organization. The complexity of a city is still also a learning organization, or a learning community in some cases, a collection of organizations. So both of these challenges are part of how we will consider today's topic. The Learning City program is something that has grown over many years, going back to early thoughts circulated by Jacques Delors, published by UNESCO, and UNESCO have really driven forward the idea of learning cities working in a global network since the ideas were formed in 2012 and then launched in 2013. So Konstantinos and Edith, Konstantinos PAGRATIS and Edith Hammer from the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning team will, I'm sure, outline some of that background today. And we are very grateful to their participation for today. We will be hearing also then from a university which has led a key role in developing a learning city and a learning city region in Wolverhampton in the United Kingdom. So Professor Mary Mahoney from the University of Wolverhampton and Wolverhampton Learning City will give an input on the role research can, should, and must play in the work of learning cities. That will be followed by some observations by Dr. Seamus O'Toole from the perspective of a university, looking also at new networks that are now emerging, the ASEM network between Asia, Europe, and also the Learning Cities Network and its efforts to use a research base to inform its work. And then we're very grateful to be joined by Eric Agbassi from the French city of Clermont-Ferrand, also another UNESCO learning city with Wolverhampton, Cork, and Balázs's home city of Pécs. And Eric will give a response to the various inputs we've heard this morning. So if we are all okay to start, what I would propose we do, Karma, if you can allow for us to see the full screen, if you can take away the slide and we can see the full set of faces that are with us this morning. So what we've done the last few mornings, just to get a sense of who we are and how we know each other, is to do something lighthearted to introduce ourselves. So today I'm going to use something that I learned recently from another conference hosted by the European Science Engagement Association, which was to be in Cork and then became online. So they, I suppose we're all learning all the time. In a Zoom call, most of you know this, I'm sure, but I didn't, on the top corner of your screen, beside the mute button, are three little dots. And if you click on those dots, they bring up other options, stop video, rename, etc. So what I would like you to do just to start this morning is to click on the three dots and in the rename section to give the name of your city. So your first name, it's Mary, it's Dennis, it's Konstantinos, but whatever city you're in today. And that will give us a sense of where people are coming from right around the world. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. If you can all find it, go up to the top of your screen, click on the three dots, go down to the rename function. So I'm doing it here. So my name is Dennis and I am from Cork in Ireland. So your city and your country. So we'll just give you a second or two to do that. Some of our friends in America have had a very early start this morning and may have had a very late night as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty emerging from what's happening across the water, as we say, the other side of the pond and in this part of the world. So I see, yeah, we have Palm City. Susan is
while people are doing the putting in the names, just another note. I want to wish Konstantinos and Edith, happy birthday. Today is the birthday of the founding of UNESCO in 1946.
Thank you so much.
So we need a birthday cake, a virtual birthday cake. Okay, I'm going to just go around briefly then. Some of you are still working on your renames. So those that I can see, and again, if there are people with us as I go around, you might just put on your camera briefly and introduce yourself. So Mary from Wolverhampton, do you want to just introduce yourself, what organization you're from?
I'm Mary Mahoney, and I am the Head of Lifelong Learning and the Director of Learning Regions at University of Wolverhampton, and I'm representing the Wolverhampton Learning City Initiative today.
Great stuff. So the next on my screen, I'm just going to take them in whatever order. Lut. So do you want to introduce yourself and where you're from?
Yes, hello, I'm Lut Moorthamer. I'm working at the university in Leuven, Belgium, the Catholic University of Leuven, where I am coordinating a team on lifelong learning that is supporting all initiatives on lifelong learning in our university.
Good stuff. So next on my screen, Balázs. I think you have a sense of where you're from, but just to say what city you're in.
I'm from Pécs University and the city of Pécs in Hungary, southwest of the country, on the way to Croatia from Budapest. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Balázs. So I'm going to go to the top of my screen. Oljesa. I hope I haven't mispronounced your name.
Hello, you have pronounced everything correct. In fact, I am from Kursk, I'm from Russia, and I work at Kursk State Medical University. I teach English, and I'm glad to see you all because once I was participating in the conference in Malta, organized by your organization. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Oljesa. So next on my screen is Seamus from Cork. We've heard from Seamus already. Do you want to just tell us what section of the university you are from?
Yeah, I did my birthday greetings earlier. I'm from Adult Continuing Education, and we will be celebrating our 75th birthday in a few weeks' time. And so that's me from Cork.
Very good. Next across the line is Susan. So Susan.
Hello everyone, Susan Dennett from Palm City, Florida. It's about 30 miles north of West Palm Beach. I'm from England originally, as I said the other day, and I work in the Adult and Community Education Department for Florida Atlantic University.
That's great. Thanks, Susan. And next is Konstantinos. So you're currently coming from?
Hello, Dennis. Good morning. Hello, colleagues. Hello to learning cities. Hello to universities. Hello. My name is Konstantinos PAGRATIS. I work for UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in the coordination team of UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities. And I'm very pleased to participate here today. And my task for today is to present the work of the GLNC and the future agenda also together with one of my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Konstantinos. And I'll go to your colleague next, Edith.
Good morning. Yes, I'm also working at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in the field of lifelong learning policies. And since this year, I'm mainly dedicated to the relationship of universities and lifelong learning. So that's my focus now. Usually, Konstantinos and I share an office here, but that doesn't work anymore. So yes, welcome to everyone. Very pleased to be here.
Thanks, Edith. Next, we go to John. John in America.
Was that me?
That's you.
My name is John Wooding, and I'm at Norm, Massachusetts in the USA, barely awake and deeply troubled. Thank you.
That's the day that's in it. Okay, just going around the screen. Nicholas, do you want to introduce and where you're from?
Hello, thank you everybody. I'm Nicolas, I'm from France, the city of Clermont-Ferrand, and I work with Eric Agbesi.
That's great stuff. As I was sharing with Eric earlier, Cork has a nice connection with Clermont-Ferrand, and Clermont were significant participants in the UNESCO conference in 2017, hosted in Cork, and brought a youth delegation to our conference. And we've a strong connection ever since and looking to grow that. Next is Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos, do you want to tell us again what city and where you're from?
Yes, hi everybody. Well, I'm from the Universidad Carlos III of Madrid. We have 4 campuses, one in downtown Madrid, but also in 3 other cities that I hope will be in the future learning cities from UNESCO, that are Getafe, Leganés, and Colmenarejo.
That's excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Juan Carlos. Next, ULLL.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Good. I am Ulla and coming from Tartu, the second largest city in Estonia, which is 100,000 inhabitants. And this is a university town where we have at least 25% of young people. Thank you.
Thanks, ULLL. Next, the UCAN Secretariat, so maybe Karma or one of your team, if you want to just tell us which city you're based in. I think most people know, but it's just to connect.
Let me put the video. We are in Barcelona, located in Barcelona, although the association is from Belgium, but the Secretariat is in Barcelona, Spain.
Brilliant. Thanks, Karma. So Eric in the chat says he can't put the name in, but Eric, do you want to introduce yourself and again the city you're based in?
Yeah, okay, so I'm from Clermont-Ferrand. I was for years vice rector in charge of lifelong learning in my university, and well, now I work in the Department of Communication Studies, and I work with Nicholas, who introduced himself a few minutes ago. Because we work in the Center of Social Innovation together.
Social innovation, that's great. Eric, when the sound isn't great, so later when we're getting your response, we might maybe have no camera. It might help the bandwidth. But it's great to have you join us, Eric. And Eric is also on the UCAN steering group. So next we'll go to Esther. So we see, again, I think similar background, but tell us which city and where you're based.
Okay, hello to everyone. My name is Esther Martinez. I am associate professor at the University Carlos III in Madrid, the same institution that Juan Carlos is. And actually, in that moment, I am the director of continuing education and the responsibility of doing more or less coordination and organization the programs inside this type of long life learning. And as Juan Carlos said, we are trying to launch the possibility to have Getafe and Leganés, the 2 campus in the learning cities from UNESCO.
Thank you, Esther. So the next is Joni. So Joni.
Hi everyone. I'm sure I've met most of you by now, but my name is Joni. And I work for the team at Adults Continuing Education in University College Cork in Ireland. It's nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Joni. And next we heard a wonderful presentation yesterday from Carmel. So Carmel, do you want to tell us again where you're from? I think Carmel is frozen in time, so we'll keep moving. So next is Sarah. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself? And again, there's a good team here today from Clermont-Ferrand. So
yes, hello. My name is Sarah Valhoff, and I'm working with Nicolas Duraca and Eric Agbesi in social innovation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. And again, another from the Claremont team, Lancelot.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Lancelot, working with Sarah, Nicholas, and Eric about social innovation. Thank you all for us today.
Thanks, Lancelot. So next is Luca. Luca, do you want to again give your background and where you're coming from?
Yes. Hello, I'm Luca Gaberšek from Ljubljana, Slovenia, and I work for CPZ International, that Center for Knowledge Promotions. We work on different projects in education.
Brilliant. Thanks, Luca. So again, I'm going to keep going on my screen. Jenny is next. You can introduce yourself, Jenny.
Hello, I am Jenny Panje from the University of Ioannina. I'm professor there. And I'm also the Vice President of the Lifelong Learning Department in the University of Ioannina.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jenny. Next on my screen is Montse Beltran. If you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, hi. My name is Montse. I'm working here in Barcelona with Carmen, and I'm the team assistant. So I will be here to help you if you need anything. And I'm part of the UCAN team.
Brilliant. Thanks,
okay.
Montse.
Nice to meet you too. Okay.
Yeah. Next, we come from Lausanne in Switzerland. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pascal Pachud. I'm from the Joint Foundation for Continuing Education of the University of Lausanne and EPFL, two institutions that share the same campus. And a special welcome to our American friends this morning.
Indeed. Thanks, Pascal. So next I'm going to go to Annalisa in the States.
Good morning, everybody. It's still dark here in more ways than one. I'm at Cornell in Global Development and Adult Education, and forgive me for not turning on my camera. I'm in bed.
Well, it's been a long night in the States. Next on my screen is Pierre Friedrich.
Hi everyone, I'm Pierre Friedrich from Clermont-Ferrand. We've been invited by Erika Bessie. Thank you for having us today.
That's great to meet you, Pierre. And I think we have a few more from Karma's team in UCAN. Julie?
Yes, good morning everyone. I'm from the UCAN team as well in Barcelona.
Lovely. And Francesca?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm also from UCAN team, although I'm based at home right now. So hello, everyone.
That's great. And again, thank you all in the team behind the scenes that made this very full week and a very worthwhile week happen. And last on my screen, but certainly not least, my friend. At this point, we've worked together for a long time with UNESCO. So Raul Valdez Cortera is here with us also.
Good morning, good afternoon. It's really pleased to be with you. My name is Raul. I'm the team leader at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and very pleased to see you all and to have a good discussion on the Learning Cities initiative. I think it will be a great opportunity to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raul. And last of the last, I think, Karen, you just came in time to introduce yourself. We've taken a little bit of time to hear from everybody, but I think it's important. We've taken this during the week so that when we finish our business of this week, it would be great that the connections that are made through UCAN and through other networks, including new connections, are retained. So Karen, we just ask people to introduce themselves and where they're from, what city they're from.
Right. Okay, my name is Karen Ferreira-Meyers. I'm originally from Belgium, but I've lived in Southern Africa, in Eswatini to be particular, for the last 30-odd years. I work at the Institute of Distance Education of the University of Eswatini, and I'm in charge of language programs, basically English, French, Portuguese. And it's lovely to be here with everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, Karen. So I think we will start our business of today. So our first input will come from the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, from Konstantinos first, and then followed by Edith. So Konstantinos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Denise, and thank you very much to all the colleagues to all over the world. So good morning and good evening also from my side to all universities and learning cities. And once again, congratulations to eucen for the organization, but also to the University College Cork. My intervention will be short, and together with my colleague Edith Hammer, we will present the work of the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities and the future agenda within the next couple of years. I would like to inform you that to those that were not aware, that the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities continues to build and strengthen partnerships around the globe. Only in September, or actually on the 20th of September, the network joined around 50 cities, around 50 cities from 27 countries. And in total, at the moment, we have more than 200 learning cities from 64 countries. These cities are working on building effective lifelong learning policies and practices, which support, of course, the development of inclusive, safe, and sustainable cities. What I wanted to say also at this point is that a few words about the webinars that we have done from last March ongoing, when the lockdown in a lot of European countries started. We hosted, and in particular the Global Network of Learning Cities hosted a series of webinars on different topics. These webinars were on a weekly basis. They were in total 16, and we had the opportunity to discuss together with the cities and exchange ideas on contingency plans, but also measures taken for COVID-19 and learning in general during the COVID-19 crisis. Now, a few words about the Global Network of Learning Cities, a new and ongoing actually strategy, which started last year in 2019 in October in particular, and was launched during the 4th International Conference on Learning Cities that took place in the city of Medellin in Colombia. The main elements of the strategy, so to say, is the generation of 7 thematic areas of work within the Global Network of Learning Cities. So it's very important to mention these areas of work. Let me please start with the cluster on education for sustainable development, which is the first cluster and the largest cluster of the network at the moment. The second is the cluster on learning for health and well-being. Then we have the cluster on equity and inclusion, the one on educational planning, the cluster on entrepreneurship, and finally the cluster on literacy, but also the cluster on citizenship education. What does it mean in practice? We're working since 2019 together with the cities with specific work plans in order to present the work of the cities, but coordinated, of course, by with the support of 2 cities for each cluster. And this work will be presented during the next International Conference on Learning Cities, which will be the 5th one and will take place in autumn 2021. So this is the work that we're currently doing together with the cities. Finally, I would like to mention some of the areas that we have also started to working with, which is the role of universities in building the learning cities, and in particular identify which role the university have in designing and building the learning society. Second, the role of technology and sustainability. And third, the interdisciplinary learning. As cross-cutting issues, we have also identified 2 elements. The first element is the element of youth, and the second is the element of gender. For that particular reason, last week, actually on Friday, we had the chance to launch the gender video tutorial, which I will be able to share with you right after in the chat bar, which is a work of UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities together with the cities, of course. This is in order to complement and add a new perspective on gender. And this took place in cooperation with the section of Education for Inclusion and Gender Equality. Since we have a lot of participants here from many countries, I would like to mention that the new application period for joining the Global Network of Learning Cities will start again in March 2020. That means in a couple of months. And we usually have it open every year for 2 to 3 months. And there the cities who would like to express their interest to joining the network are submitting an application form to the National Commission of UNESCO in their respective countries. And then the National Commission of UNESCO, in cooperation with our office, with our institute, they are submitting to us. That's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. I am at your disposal in case you have any questions. And I'm very much looking forward to the discussions later on today. And thank you.
Thank you to Konstantinos. So now I will hand over to your colleague from UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, Edith Hammer.
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, as Konstantinos has already mentioned, the links between universities and learning cities and the role that universities play in building learning cities are part of the research agenda of the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. And since this year, we are conducting a research project on the role of universities to promote lifelong learning in a broader sense. This is not a new topic to the Institute. ULL has been working on this, on the role of higher education for lifelong learning for many years. Just to mention one publication that was published in 2015. Doesn't appear very well in the camera. So we continue this work now, also building on important research that has been done in the European higher education area by UCAN, of course, also by the European University Association and other international networks. And in this research, which we are conducting together with our partner, the Shanghai Open University, during a period of 3 years, we mainly want to explore how can universities contribute to not only provide lifelong learning opportunities to their students, to the traditional students of 18 to 25 years old, but how can they reach a broader group of people outside the higher education field? How can they have an impact on their communities? How can they drive the learning cities development? And what kind of enabling conditions are necessary to enable universities to do so. So we look at legal frameworks at the national level, but also at enabling conditions at local level. How are cities enabling universities to promote lifelong learning? So what is the connection between the two of them? And we can see, of course, within the GNLC, a lot of good examples. You mentioned previously Wolverhampton, of course. Also Cork is excellent in that, but also outside of Europe, Shanghai or the city of Manizales are very good examples of making the best of this link of the higher education sector and the learning cities development. In our research that we are conducting, we have several thematic areas that we deal with, reflecting also what we consider quite important demographic developments at the moment. We are having one research field on the role of open universities as a particular type of university within the higher education sector. We are conducting a study on open universities, specifically in the context of China. We're having another thematic focus on universities responding to the needs of aging societies as one of the mega demographic trends pretty much worldwide. Another one on universities' community engagement, which is already quite closely linked to the topic of learning cities. And the fourth area is the role of universities in building learning cities. We could also see the importance of universities in impacting their local communities during the past month. There are very good examples of universities supporting their cities, their citizens during the COVID-19 crisis. ULL has also published an issue note providing such examples and good practice to share with other institutions. Also in the research, one important point is to see what is how a university is bridging the demand for research excellence and lifelong learning, which is sometimes by the institutions considered as a contradiction, and to see how within a lifelong learning mission, universities can actually also maybe challenge the conception of excellence research by involving, by applying concepts of participatory and community engaged research, solving the challenges of local communities, solving the challenges within their cities, for example. So we can see that this is there's a lot to do for us in the next years on this subject, and we're very pleased to have this strong network and research partners in this field. As a last point, I would like to mention one of the main points of our overall project is a global survey on universities' contribution to lifelong learning. The survey has been developed together with the International Association of Universities and also in collaboration with a group of experts serving us as an advisory group. Also, some of the members of this advisory group are in the Open Fora today. And the survey is still open. We invite higher education institutions from all over the world to participate. We think it's really important to get this kind of data, to get a global picture of the advancements that have been made. And I will post the link to the survey in the comment section, and please feel free to not only respond to the survey but also to share it within your networks. We believe that's a really important way of data collection and to build on this evidence base. If you have any questions, I'm very pleased to answer now, or please also feel free to contact me afterwards. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant, Edith and Konstantinos, and also the team working with Raul and David based in Hamburg. So as Edith and Konstantinos have outlined, there's a whole range of pieces of work underway, and many of them are relevant to all of you as potential partners. So if we can use the chat for today's session to post links. Konstantinos has put the link to the new video on gender up there, but also questions for Edith or Konstantinos or Raul. And also if you can use the chat for points of contact. If somebody does want to contact you directly afterwards, Edith, maybe you can put your contact details in the chat also. Okay, so we'll take all the questions at the end, but I would like to consider all of the range of inputs. So our next speaker is coming from Wolverhampton, United Kingdom, Mary Mahoney. So Mary, do you want to give your input? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Could I have my slides, please? Thanks, Johnny. Hi, I'm Mary Mahoney, and I'm representing Wolverhampton Wolverhampton City Learning Region. We are trying to be both. I've been given a fairly impossible task, so trying to describe why research is important in 10 minutes. So I don't think I can do that. So I've struggled with this presentation, and hopefully I will create probably more questions than answers. And the position I'm coming from is really about a values proposition of to whom is research important and for what purpose in the context of a learning city. I am a university-based academic. I've worked in healthy cities movement in Australia and in Europe, and so I have a fairly different perspective on the role of learning cities. And it was much easier to talk about research in the context of learning, in healthy cities, because it's very much research-driven and solution-focused. I'm sorry I couldn't get a photograph of Wolverhampton in time, but just to give you a sense of the Wolverhampton City Learning Region, what we're aspiring to do, partnership that underpins the development of our learning city was driven by the university and has the City of Wolverhampton Council as a core driver behind it. And we are aspiring to put learning at the heart of economic and social development within the city. And in recent terms, we've come up with a set of values and benefits. We felt that people didn't really understand what we were trying to do, so we've come up with some very, very simple, iconic pictures and statements about what we're trying to do. But we have a very strong sense in Wolverhampton, given its deprivation, that a great deal of activity is happening at a very high level, but unless the population and the residents and so on come along with that journey, then really it may as well be happening on the moon as far as they're concerned. Wolverhampton is an extremely disadvantaged community in the West Midlands of the United Kingdom, and it has its population is 260,000. It has 88 languages spoken. It's very, very embedded kind of community where groups live together in those communities, and it has been incredibly adversely affected through the impact of the pandemic. And we go back into lockdown in this country again tomorrow. So it's a really challenging time. So I'm terribly sorry that my job as the head of lifelong learning has really had to take the fore in the last 24 hours as we try and lock down our learning environment as well and move everything online. Thanks very much, Julie. So I have three messages. It's really complex, the picture, and it's community-based, and I'll try and present a very simple way of thinking about research and the values underpinning it. So research is essential, but often we don't start with what we're trying to achieve and for whom as part of that equation. I have had two experiences, I've had a lot of experience of doing community-based participatory research in Australia and the UK, and one of the more challenging experiences is when we were working with some very remote communities in Australia, and one of the community workers said to me, well, I don't know what you think you're doing. You're coming out here as an academic telling us what our problems are and how we should fix them. We know what our problems are and we don't need you as an expert to come and tell us. Thanks very much. Another one was after an enormously complex project, which was around the drought in Australia, which was causing massive, massive problems. 7 years of drought in rural communities was just decimating those communities. And one of my colleagues said, thank you. You have just said to the politicians and the experts everything we've been saying to them for about 5 years, and they wouldn't listen to because you use the language they will understand. And I think in that one statement, one, I stayed in higher education because I was fairly fed up, and two, I understood what our role was. So universities have to be part of learning cities, and I think any learning city initiative without a partner university is it will struggle in many ways because they play a fairly hidden role, but that puts an enormous burden on the university. It must understand that a learning city is about people's lives. It's not a laboratory. It's about future. It's about people's investment in their place and their understanding of their place. And it's about change. And it's about trying to move a location or change its perspective. And in Wolverhampton, one of our biggest issues is that for most people, learning means formal education and failure. And so they have no passion for it, no aspiration linked to it, etc. So we have to really understand our community community before we can do everything. And we have to be prepared to step away and think this is not our time to comment. So whilst we are absolutely passionate about it, we have to know our place. And also it's in our benefit, it's in our remit to be part of this initiative, because unless the profile of Wolverhampton improves, then the university can't grow and prosper, and neither can the community in many ways. So we know our place and we understand it, and I think it is a really sensitive story. So that's the first picture about if you are a university working, and you will all know this, I'm just teaching you all your core job. The university role is a highly sensitive role and it has to be played very, very carefully. Next one, please. The complexity. This is just one example of the complexity. Okay, now this isn't even our Wolverhampton City Learning Region diagram. This comes from a document I found this morning, which had a beautiful summary that I just needed. And you'll have similar ones, but just looking at the whole governance structure, and you can change learning communities there, which is one of the partners in this initiative in Wolverhampton. You could change that for the Wolverhampton Learning City Initiative, but just look at all of the groups, particularly the groups at the top level. We've got a city board of all of the kind of key people, gatekeepers, etc. in the city, and then underneath that we've got the business board. The skills and employment board is where the key learning city governance sits. And we also have an inclusion board, but it's not really a board involving the city council. It's a group of voluntary and third sector organisations whose job is to tackle issues of disadvantage and exclusion. So we just to keep that board happy, we have to meet with them on a very, very regular basis just to brief them on what we're doing and make them understand that it is a completely participatory process. But if you think about who the research is for what purpose, and who's going to value it, then you've got UNESCO, any network you belong to, the government, the governors in any kind of jurisdiction like this, key funders who might be supporting your research and their requirements for reporting, the planning departments in each of our cities and around resource allocation, businesses, our core partners involved, and in Wolverhampton all of the core lifelong learning providers exist, and we work on a core partnership basis. But then we have key stakeholder groups who we have to consult with, as I've said, the voluntary and third sector, and then that's before we even start talking about the different communities and their traditions, heritage, understanding, etc. So the whole notion of the value of research, why is research important, I believe is embedded in this notion of valuing, and so I can't give you a very clear demonstration of that because the value will have to sit within that community, and that's where the judgment will rest, just as the value of what Edith has just described from a UNESCO perspective around the role of universities will be judged according to what the metrics are for universities. But that doesn't mean the complexity shouldn't stop us, because our job is as a core element of creating a learning city, and that is that we are bringing in expert knowledge and expertise to help move the agenda on, to create the kind of change to justify and do a whole series of things. So what I've done is provide you with a model. This is coming from both my background in public engagement and community consultation, but also from healthy public policy perspective. This model is derived from the the International Association of Public Participation, and they came up with a really dynamic model many years ago. This is a slight change on it, and I'll show the difference in my final slide. But this says at one level there is a really clear role, and the diagrams are the crucial bit here. If you're in the centre as the university working in a learning city context, in the first one you have a key role around informing. So it's very much expert university driving, and there's a time and a place for that. You're pushing out information, expertise into the partner or the city in this kind of context. The second one is about listening and getting that information back in order to make sense of it. The third one is reciprocal, where a discussion occurs, but also this is about movement in sharing, I suppose, and reciprocity around the value of particular knowledge and the different types of knowledge. The fourth one is around engagement, where you are no longer, that central position would no longer be a university, because we're just one of the players in that, and the totality of what we're achieving is crucial. And the final bit is, as you can see, a partnership model where there's complete sharing and complete understanding. So if you wouldn't mind just moving to the last slide, which shows, I've tried on this one just to capture the core messages based on a very simple model like this. And again, using Wolverhampton as our example, because your model and explanation will be very different. So in the context of informing, it's a one-way expert-driven process, and it's very clearly defined, and its value or its purpose will be around helping to plan and priority set. And one example of that might be the creation of baseline data sets on the population or its characteristics, so its employment status, educational achievement, income, all of the attributes that are vital around a learning city. The second level is really about, if you're taking this from a university perspective, it's about gathering information and consulting to achieve that. So in this context, we're listening, we're making sense, we're using our expert abilities of analysis, etc., using evidence from a range of sources to create a whole series of increasing understanding, increasing innovation, looking for funding opportunities. So here the value of research is going to be very, very different and applied in a different way. And I'll give you one of the examples. My colleague and I, two colleagues and I have written a report, which I'm happy to send you, on futures of learning in the context of the fourth industrial revolution. That's set against the West Midlands and the Wolverhampton, but it's also looking at what the emerging trends are around employment, skills needs, and so on going forward. Now, no one might look at that.
The inclusion of different stakeholders.
Learning City may never pick this up, but it's about putting that on the agenda in order to consult further if people start to question whether the provision, the learning provision locally, actually fits with the digital or skills needs going forward. So it serves a purpose, but again, it is an expert-driven process. And as you can see, you're moving down, you are starting to increase participation, engagement, sharing, and capacity building. And so the research and its intention and its value will change accordingly. So in the next one, obviously, you're working with the community, you're sharing information because you're trying to improve practice and you're showcasing globally what you're doing. And an example of this was that UNESCO needed us, as part of kind of our feedback from our application, was that we weren't clear about how we were mobilising resources. So when we wrote our report of the Learning Festival that we conducted last year, we really concentrated on the evidence around how you can quantify direct and indirect investment of resource in achieving a learning festival and the outcomes from it. So again, we added our contribution, but we couldn't have done that without sharing the involvement of our partners who made the festival such a success. And in so doing, they will then write their reports differently. And then the final two are obviously at that far end of engagement. You are creating a unified agenda where you're starting to lobby, you're trying to create multifaceted developments, you are trying to work more in partnership, and as you move down that spectrum, should be across the spectrum, you are increasing the sustainability of the initiative through upskilling so that your partners don't need your expertise, or they come to you and ask you to do it. And so an example on the engagement and collaboration level is, at the moment, we have just been through the most amazing experience with the learning communities partners over the COVID learning response. We wanted them to take a particular approach. We wanted to bring in some funding to look at behaviour change models. No, they didn't want it. So here, all we've achieved at this stage is to talk to them about the possibilities of that, and they've got what they want. And apologies for the typo on the slide, which was produced a few minutes ago. And then the last one is obviously the power that we can bring as a university is to share the stories, because often a city is not aware of other people wanting to learn about it and taking the messages out. So it's about reporting globally, recognition and shared practice. And so this is just from our perspective. Your examples would be different, your intent may be different, and the way in which you approach it will depend on the nature of the partnership and the infrastructure within each of the learning cities. So I think on that basis, I've said enough, but just to pick up on one final point, and that is that this notion of reciprocity and the role and the value for universities. And there are major shifts. And one of the things that's happened in the UK is we have a government has now an industrial strategy, which has a commitment to lifelong learning in it. As part of that, knowledge exchange is now understood as vital to the government's understanding of how universities play a role in their community. So before we were assessed on teaching excellence and research excellence, now we're being assessed on our ability to share our knowledge and exchange our knowledge. And one core and challenging strand for the government is how our public and community engagement is understood and its impacts and value are recognised. And the other crucial thing that's happening in the UK, which may happen in other countries or have already happened, is the whole notion of universities having a civic mission. I think some of the key agents in this country, and politicians in particular, became very distressed at universities only being about an upskill of a workforce and the economic development agenda. And so the civic university mission has recognised the role of universities in adult lifelong learning, in growing their communities. And so we have new drivers that are vital to us in participating in this activity, and I can share some of those documents with you if you're interested. Thanks very much, and I hope that's given you a whistle-stop tour on the value of research.
It certainly has. Thank you so much, Mary. Again, I suppose to use the chat bar to give links to some of the documents you mentioned. Thanks for bringing the perspectives from the recent past and your background in healthy cities also. So our next input today is from Dr. Seamus O'Toole. So Seamus, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dennis. Okay. I'll be very brief because I think my colleagues, Mary and our friends from UIL covered a lot of the material that was, you know, part of my presentation. So I suppose just to say, I mean, I think both the UIL and Mary's presentations really dovetail very, very closely with my ideas and initiatives, and we're working very closely with UIL in terms of developing the a new research network within the ASSAM Lifelong Learning Hub, which is around learning cities. And I suppose what I want to say today is that this is an opportunity for university lifelong learning entities, but universities in general, I suppose, to participate in this project. And while ASSAM relates to the 51 countries, mostly in Europe and Asia, but also including Australia and New Zealand, I would say that my perspective from the world is that I'm very happy for people from all parts of the planet to participate in this project, and I think we can benefit from that. And in working with UIL, I suppose I'm very conscious that we're sharing in the very important work of the United Nations, which I think we need now more than any time in our history, and especially today, I suppose, marking this on the 46th the birthday of UNESCO. I think it's important to remember that. So I'm very conscious of the time. So the idea of the ASSAM Lifelong Learning Hub, it's organized into 6 research networks, and one of these research networks is around learning cities. Now, what I would say is that we are at the beginning stage, so it's a good time to shape that agenda and create it in a way that reflects what we want to achieve. So the most important thing for us really is the collaboration with UNESCO, with UIL on this project in terms of identifying the research agenda and working in close collaboration with the UNESCO learning cities. So we don't want to engage in any kind of duplication here. We want to build synergies. So I suppose just to say, I mean, there are many, many versions of learning cities. There is a huge wealth of practical examples. We have identified through the UNESCO process what we see as the essential elements of what a learning city might be. So we have a lot in relation to practice, but I suppose what we're going to try and do now is try to move that project along in terms of developing a research agenda around it to, I suppose, better understand what we're doing, inform what we're doing. And there's a very, very important role here, I think, for university lifelong learning missions, the members of UCAN and those who aren't members of UCAN as well, to engage in this because I think the whole lifelong learning mission and the learning cities mission are very, very closely aligned. And I think from Mary's presentation, you can see that, and also from the previous days in terms of, we've seen that in relation to Page and in relation to Cork as well in the last few days. And we're going to see more examples of that tomorrow in terms of the US agenda. So we want to cross disciplines as much as possible. So I think, it's nice to hear Mary's presentation coming from the Healthy Cities, because that, again, I'm very opposed to the idea of silos. I think it's important that people think across disciplines, think from different orientations, and just not get fixed into a single way or a kind of a very closed disciplinary way of thinking. Now, I apologize, Mary, for using the word laboratory here, because I saw that you're not happy with this word laboratory, and neither am I, in the sense of I don't believe in the idea that people are there to be exploited in terms of our research. I think, it's a very important part of my view of the world, is that we would have bottom-up science, citizen science initiatives, and that people in the local communities, in the local areas, they can identify the problems better than anybody else, because they're living with those problems on a day-to-day basis. But it's useful for universities to help people to frame those questions in a way that's useful for them, and as well in terms of driving policy. So I think we have an opportunity here to expand the understanding of what learning cities are, and really take it to another level. Now, I was going to go into slightly more, but I just want to bring your attention just to one quote, the quote on this. And this comes from Wire from back in 1990. Seems like a long time ago now, 30 years ago. But this quote to me is always such an important quote, where it says, higher education must focus with special urgency on questions that affect profoundly the destiny of all. And I think it's really important for universities to realize that mission, because they have a special place in the world. And I just feel that a lot of universities are conscious of this, but a lot of universities are not. Now, I just want to, I just skip these along, and I'll send them on to Karma, and they can be shared later. I suppose just to say, I suppose that the thinking, a lot of thinking has been formed through the ULL, the UNESCO project, from Beijing right up to Medellin and Mexico and Cork. And each of these, I suppose, has been piecing together another piece of the jigsaw in terms of what the challenges are, what the focus is. And now I suppose what we're trying to do is we're trying to put a research aspect into that. So I suppose what I'm doing today is, as well as just telling you a little bit about this, it's just an open invitation for people to participate. If you're interested in becoming involved in this project, please let us know. We want people to help us shape the agenda in collaboration with UNESCO, in collaboration with the ASEM community, in collaboration with cities, with universities, and those people who are committed to the Learning Cities project. I'm going to stop there now, because I'm very conscious of time, and we need to hear from Eric. So I'll share these slides with Karma, and people will be able to get them.
Thank you so much, Seamus. Again, marrying with Mary's input and the input from UNESCO, really naming the opportunities that are there now. So we've asked Eric Agbesi to consider these inputs and to give a response. Eric is a steering group member from UCAN and from Clermont-Ferrand. The floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me properly?
Sounds good so far, Eric. Yes.
Okay, so well, I would like first to thank the 4 people who just presented this number of things that were very interesting, and I think that we have a lot of food for thought, and as well, I think that considering all the things that were said, we've got a lot on our plates in the very near future, because if we really want to implement this number of the things that were defined and try to go deeper into this number of the points that were made, is going to be in the long run, and I don't think that some of the points that were sketched today can be really finally drawn in the very near future. As far as Konstantinos is concerned, the first thing that came to me while I was listening to him was when he mentioned the 7 areas of work as far as learning cities are concerned. My question is that, or the first thing that came to my mind is that I wonder if really we really have the opportunity to have similar plans in all Europe, let alone around the world, because there is something that I would like to mention now, but is going to be part of all the points that I'm going to make, is the scheme of narratives that we have and the vocabulary that we use. Because I'm not really sure that, and well, I'm convinced that it's very difficult to assert that all cities are the same in the different parts of Europe and in the world. They are not run in the same way, they're not ruled in the same way, people don't work together in the same way, the different communities are not the same. So it's, to me, a question, and I would like to hear what he has to say about this. He mentioned something really very important too during his presentation. It's the gender issue. We know how difficult it is to deal with this question, more particularly now that there is this concept of diversity that is really regularly mentioned. You know what is going on in different places of the world when you've got, for instance, different religious backgrounds. This is particularly difficult for the time being in France. It was the case in Austria well, 2 days ago. I think that it would be very interesting to work on this more particularly. We have people like Nancy Fraser, the American specialist of this issue, who worked on the public sphere and who very clearly defined and showed that it is something that we really have to put back at the very core of all the work that we've got to do. As far as Edith is concerned, it was very interesting too what she said in terms of definition of research projects in a lifelong learning strategy. I would like to use something that a French candidate to the French presidency used a few years ago. She used this expression, a win-win strategy. I think that as far as lifelong learning and higher education are concerned, we can work both ways, and this is something that Mary tried to exemplify during her presentation. We can raise a number of issues, we can help solve problems, we can connect people, but at the very same time, it's really very interesting to see how first-hand data can be used by those who are specialists in certain fields and want to work on different issues dealing with cities. It is also a way to me of testing excellency, because I'm not really sure that whenever we say that there is a research project or research process, I'm not always really sure that we use the same ideas and the same ways of defining what is this excellency. So it would be very interesting one more time, and it goes back to the point I made before in terms of narratives. So this is another point, another issue to me that is very interesting. Edith mentioned that there was a global survey that was launched. I don't really understand when it was launched by experts. and that certain number of advancements were made, but I would like to know more about what kind of advancements these were and how these advancements were useful to the UNESCO, and that would be very interesting to learn more about this. Then after that, I just paid a lot of attention to, of course, I paid a lot of attention to what the four people said, of course. It was very interesting what Mary said about research and what way it is important. I think that as far as communities are concerned, we go back to square one, that is to say to the first point that I raised, meaning that when she uses the word communities, to me, there are two different strategies at the European level. We've got this Anglo-Saxon way of defining communities. They've been clearly defined in the American and in the British law. It is totally different from the French universal kind of strategy, which is more Latin and which is seems to try to consider that everybody's on equal footing. This is, if I don't know if some of you listen to what President Macron said about, you know, the French position as far as the Islam is concerned, and the building of the development in the very near future of the relationship between the religious communities in France. But he clearly stated that this universalism was at the very center of his policy, and that was the strategy that was more Southern-like. So we've got to ask ourselves this question and really have to work precisely on what communities mean if we really want to move forward. This is my point of view. Just, you know, I just want to bring some food for thought. Simply, it's not something that I would like to say that this is the way to consider things. Don't misinterpret my words, but I think that this is something that is going to be very important in the very near future. So that's the reason why I said previously that there were some sketches that were made, but there are things that need to be, we need to go deeper into them. The second thing is about complexity. And it was very, very interesting what she presented, what Mary presented on screen. And I think that she used the word, and it was written on her slides, communication. I think that it would be very interesting to see what she defined as formal communication in that very circumstance, which should be connected to the university and its strategy as such within a learning center perspective, learning city perspective, sorry. And what is informal, because in what way, you know, the university as such works with people, and what, you know, people on the field, just grassroots, people who go to the suburbs or try to work on a specific issue will represent the university as such, and to see if there are oppositions between this formal communication strategy and this informal communication strategies that are implemented in that very circumstance. So these possible approaches are connected to this. As far as Seamus is concerned, I think that what the slide on key scholarship functions is very, very interesting. I didn't have time to write everything down because, you know, he went through the slides very rapidly, but I think that we really have to concentrate. There are keywords. Discovery is key point connected to this communication that Mary presented. Education, of course, but in what way education is meant to be. Is it just one way or another integration? But I didn't have time to write the other words. To conclude, I would like to say that there are key words to me that we've got collectively to work on. Communities, as you know, we've got to work on narratives. There is a work undertaken in UCAN on narratives. It would be very helpful if we could, you know, have a larger community of people working together on this. And it will give us time, because time is also very important. Mary mentioned it in her presentation, but I think that the notion of time is essential if we want to move forward. But to me, I would like to conclude in saying two things. Learning in what way? Is it top-down? That goes back to the formal communication strategy that I mentioned before. Or is it bottom up, and is it from informal communication strategies to formal strategies, and to see in what way we can define them? I think it would be very interesting to have a conference on this. Also, and the very last point is about the virtual conferences. We could have a seminar on testing theories, and it goes back to the excellency that I mentioned before. How can we test theories in order just to help universities go deeper into the project they use? And the very last point that we mentioned when we had a seminar a few weeks ago on with European Council, I think that it's really very important. It's high time for us to write a glossary of the keywords we use so that we agree on the definitions of work that we use all together. This is what I wanted to say very briefly because we know that we're very short of time now.
Thank you so much, Eric. As you say, food for thought, and I really like your questions you've posed to all of the speakers in different ways. So that's been a very fruitful exchange of inputs from various perspectives, from UNESCO, from a learning city, which has been driven by a university in the United Kingdom, from Mary, from Seamus from Cork, and the responses from Eric. We have tried to keep it to around the hour. We're gone a little bit over now, so there's a lot of leads I think that have been presented today that can be followed, and I would like to encourage everybody to join in the session on Friday, which is a panel discussion where the various inputs right throughout the week can be picked up on. One question that was posed, and I think we would like maybe to conclude on this, is Eric's question around narratives, different use of terms and languages, and also the different cities. That cities are not they're not run in the same way. They have a lot of differences among them. So I would just invite UNESCO, either Edith or Konstantinos, possibly to comment on the challenge of creating networks, a global network, but also UCAN as a network. At Learning City level, we have United Nations regional networks, so Europe and North America, and then we have clusters. Konstantinos spoke about this. So I wonder, Konstantinos, just as one response to some of the challenges that Eric has very usefully posed to us all, what is your observation about that challenge of narrative and differences of approach across various cities?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dennis, and thank you, Eric, for your question. I think it's very interesting to talk about this experience and the challenges that UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities also is facing sometimes while we're working together with the cities. I think you mentioned about the fact that how the cities can work together under and in line with the 7 thematic areas of work. I can give you this perspective of work that we're currently applying since last year for this region, and in order to get more information from the cities, we have launched during this time, and in particular the last couple of months, a series of questionnaires to the cities. I'm very happy to see that, for example, Clermont-Ferrand is a member also of the cluster of learning for health and well-being in the GLNC cluster, and you have also, as a city, submitted this questionnaire to us. So what do we understand with this questionnaire? We see the different perspectives, and when we are together, that means in 1 month again. This is not official, but I would like to say that now, that in 1 month we'll have the first cluster meeting on the topic of learning for health and well-being. We will be able to identify together some of the sub-themes, and we can discuss these sub-themes and agree on terms and definitions. Another example would be, for example, on the area of citizenship education. It's very broad. We agree, and I understand that it's not the same within all the context of the cities. For example, citizenship education can be related to human rights and democracy, but also for the inclusion of vulnerable groups and migrants and refugees, but also culture and citizenship education and environmental sustainability. So all that to say that the questionnaire are serving this purpose, and the questionnaire are enabling us also together with the coordinator cities in order to get more information and dig deeper into the concept as a first step for us to come up with more results and more discussion that will help us bring together the solutions. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Konstantinos. So I'm very conscious that we have gone a little over the hour. We're almost 15 minutes over. So I regretfully, really, I need to close off today's conversation, but I really want to pick up on these questions and these points that Eric and the others, all the inputs today have raised. And I think the panel session on Friday would be an excellent opportunity to do this. So just a concluding remark from me before I ask Balázs as president to close today's session is that the creation of networks and the creation of spaces for conversations which have a direct impact on the lives of citizens, of people in our cities, and the city's relationship with the university as a means of improving the quality of life for the people in our cities. That is, that remains to be the higher question that all of us in new ways can start to make some difference in addressing. And I'm really keen to see relationships that have been built over many years through UCAN and other networks, that new relationships will emerge over the next few days and that we can bring this work forward. So from my point of view, just to thank all the contributors and just to ask Balázs to formally close today's session.
Thank you very much. I think this is the time when we in the UCAN community have to thank all the participants of this event, organizers and people who have attended. Great applause to you. I think it is an important momentum in different terms, but together with UIL colleagues, it's also a reminder that UIL, together with other distinguished partners, has published a recent document on embracing the culture of lifelong learning to highlight the importance of learning cities and learning communities in association with higher education involvement. So I think this is something that we have to elaborate further on. There are very important lessons even from today, how we can step forward. Thank you very much for your input, your collaboration and your engagement in this topic. Thank you for all and have a good afternoon. Have a stay in good health. A great applause to all of you. Thank you.